Surviving Sepsis is a production of the IPRO QIN-QIO.
As a fireman stationed at the Albany, New York airport, Josh Woodward knew how quickly a fire can spread, ravaging everything in its wake. But he didn't know that sepsis could spread just as rapidly and be just as deadly. A fire often starts with a small spark, and that's how Josh's battle with sepsis began. As the infection spread undetected throughout his body, it affected his vital organs and extremities. After 6 weeks in the hospital and months in a rehab center, Josh returned home as a double amputee lucky to be alive. I'm Patrick Archambault with the IPRO QIN-QIO. In this series, Josh and his wife Chelsea share their story in the hope that it will raise awareness about the danger of sepsis, the effect it can have on individuals and families, the unexpected hurdles that patients face, and the importance of resiliency and overcoming these challenges.
So Josh, you struggled with opioid use in the past. Chelsea, can you share how this affected you and what strength you pulled from to get through it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've always been just terrified of drugs and particularly prescription pills. And we're half joking, but that really was always one of my deal breakers. And I remember when he was in the hospital and I would go visit him and he would look at the clock and start telling me he was counting down to his Dilaudid. And right away that kind of set pings in me that made me very nervous. But I also knew he was in a very unique situation and figured we will tackle that when the time comes. And at the time that he had asked me to hold the pills, what had happened was he was going through them a little faster than what he was being prescribed. And then he would have to call the pharmacy and tell them, I need more. And it would be a whole back and forth fight. He would always blame the pharmacies or the doctors, saying somebody had screwed something up. And right before the very end, he had gone through a bottle really fast. He was able to convince somebody to prescribe him more. And when I went to go pick it up, they had sort of a mini intervention with me. The pharmacy staff there said, based on the number of pills that he has taken since we prescribed it, he's at risk of death from these pills. Because, and it told me signs to look out for, like shallow breathing in his sleep and things like that. And that is really when we started deciding that I would hold the pills. And so when I found them, I was just devastated because I felt like I had worked so hard to help take care of him and nurse him back to health, and that he was intentionally, although I know I have a better understanding of it now than I did then, but to me it seemed like he was intentionally just wasting that. I'm like, you're risking death again with these little pills, and I worked so hard to keep you alive. And so the strength that I drew from it is probably a bad answer, but it was because of his sincerity in it. He meant it. After that day, after I found the pills and we had a very long discussion about it, he started calling all his doctors one by one and telling them, I've been abusing my pills and I need you to put it in my chart that I've been abusing. And I just could not imagine how hard those phone calls had to be, but he just took it. He owned his role in it, and he had the strength to fight back against it. And how can you not want to stand alongside somebody? You learn a lot about yourself that might have been a deal breaker, but I didn't consider the circumstances. And really what Josh said about nobody is spared this. It's such a tricky situation with those, especially prescription pills. I know it starts with people with injuries, and then it very slowly, it's a terrible, terrible drug. But that is a necessary evil, because his doctor said at a certain point, if he hadn't taken it, the pain alone would have killed him. So I don't really know if there's a good answer to that, but it takes a lot of strength, and luckily he has it. or stubbornness, whatever it is.
Yeah. And, my primary care doctor was the one who was prescribing me that high dose, as she mentioned. And, I had I still do have a lot of faith in her. And when I tell people these stories, they're like, oh, so did you get a new doctor? Thinking that she's just being careless. And I'm like, no, because you have to think of this from her perspective too. Like this progressed rapidly for me, but also for the people that were taking care of me. Like I'm confident that everybody was trying to do right by me, and when I met with my doctor and told her that I was becoming addicted to these things, and if you were there in the room, like the look on her face, she felt devastated. Like that was never her intention, for me to get hooked on this stuff. I think her jaw actually dropped and she felt really, really bad. And, I don't fault her for it. I don't think you can. I think anytime you're in this situation, regardless of how you got there, you are the one that took the pills. You're the one that did what you did, right? And, I think everybody had my best interest in mind. We're all just doing our best trying to figure it out in a very confusing situation.
Caregivers of people who have traumatic events are now committed to providing a level of sacrifice and care they didn't originally sign up for. How did this unexpected level of commitment affect you?
It affected me in every way possible, obviously. But I think what I'd like to say about that is when we said our vows, I meant what I meant when I said in sickness and in health. I just didn't think I'd be doing that till we were like 80. So, and I think I got practice in this situation because we have as we've mentioned, a son with autism, and, you have a baby, and they put him on my chest, and I envision a whole life and exactly how it's going to go. And then when he was around 2, he got diagnosed with autism, and he's pretty severe. And that rocked our whole world, right? It changed everything. And we grieved that. We grieved the life we thought we were going to have with him. And then it was wonderful. It was wonderful. And I had really had a practice in taking news and accepting it and letting the pieces fall where they are, and grief work and allowing yourself to grieve the life you thought you were going to have. And so when this all happened, those same feelings came through again of, this is not what I expected, but this is my life. This is our life. This is our family. And just allowing myself to move through the emotions, allowing myself to feel this is hard, this is overwhelming. And let it shape you, let it grow you, everything like that. There's no denying it's extremely tough, but it was a season. I'm not his caregiver anymore,
So with overcoming depression, they talk about a whole bunch of things to help you sort of get through depression. Talk to your healthcare provider, seek emotional and psychological support, try journaling, set small obtainable goals, celebrate your small achievements, and share them with others. Is there anything you would add to that?
I would say, especially if you're dealing with like grief or like we talked about PTSD, all of that really just pertains to a loss, right? Like something has been taken from you and now there's this void that's there. And that's applicable even when we're talking about substance abuse, right? Like people who are trying to quit. Anytime you remove something from your life, they say it's good to replace it with something. And so for me, it was really good to fill that void with something positive. That void from, firefighting, that thing I used to love so much, filling that with something positive. And if we're talking about loss of a loved one or family member, nothing's ever going to replace that person. So the idea isn't to live in denial, but the idea is to fill that void with something positive. And for me, I put my energy towards welding. It made sense to me that after you lose a couple limbs, that's what you're supposed to do. But the whole idea there is it gave me a creative outlet, and I always kind of wanted to learn a trade, and I kind of regretted never learning one when I was, when I had all my limbs. So I did some research and learned about the different types of welding and said, okay, I'm pretty sure I can do all that with just one hand. And so I went to welding school and had a blast. Kept up with everybody, and now I do it pretty much every day. I do it out of my home. I weld for people. I do my own art sculptures. I make furniture, stuff like that. So it's the closest thing I've found that makes me feel the way firefighting made me feel when I have it. So, there's always the basic things we hear all the time: combating depression, get active, get physical, move around. That's all true. But to dial it in even further, find something to fill that void that's positive, that brings you peace, that makes you happy.
Surviving Sepsis is a production of the IPRO QIN-QIO. Tune in to future episodes to hear more of Josh and Chelsea's story. Special thanks to Josh and Chelsea Woodward. Producer-host Patrick Archambault. Executive producer Teresa Jacobellis. Executive producer Sarah Butterfield. Video recording and editing Louis Cerritos. This material was prepared by the IPRO QIN-QIO, a Quality Innovation Network quality improvement organization, under contract with the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, CMS, an agency of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, HHS. Views expressed in this material do not necessarily reflect the official views or policies of CMS or HHS, and any reference to a specific product or entity herein does not constitute endorsement of that product or entity by CMS or HHS.